Hey, it's Patrick Harmon, and I've been writing books for 25 years. It's about 50 books, and I've been to about 3,000 school libraries. And 2024 was the year of Bonkers, my favorite new series that I just wrote. And this is three different books. The first one is The Terror in Jenny's Armpit. The second one is Attack of the 40-Foot Chicken. And the third one is Escape from the Dungeons of Snurbil, a classic dungeon crawl. And these books are like everything that I love about books when I was a kid. So this is a big story. It's zany, it's funny, it's very adventurous and a little bit strange. And there are three main characters you're going to find in these books. The first one is Jenny Kim. She's the leader of the pack. The second one is Barker Mifflin, who's one of my favorite characters that I've created in a long time. This is a 10-year-old doomsday prepper. And so he's a lot of fun. And then you've got Finn Stinson, an exchange student from Sweden, and all he's really good for is telling jokes and dancing, which is somebody you want to have around when you're going to go on a big adventure. So 2024, the year of bonkers, and I really enjoyed going to tons of libraries and seeing a lot of librarians. Right around 9, 10, 11 years old, books were not my favorite thing. I really needed a librarian to kind of help me figure that out. And that is really what ultimately inspires me to write for young audiences, that I struggle to find books that I liked. And so I write books that I think I would have liked when I was a 10-year-old. So I really would have liked something that's very unusual, maybe a little scary, fast paced, and having it be a little bit funny was always really important to me. So that's the kind of books that I like to write. And I put all of those things, especially into this Bonker series. When I was a kid and I was struggling with reading, my librarian was incredibly important to me. And maybe that's why I like going to school libraries so much as an adult, because it meant so much to me as a kid. And I actually have a memory of my librarian realizing that I really was not checking out a lot of books and I wasn't swinging by the library very often. And she made a deal with me. She said, "Hey, listen, I'm going to give you a book. All you have to do is read the first 5 pages. If you don't like this book, just bring it back and I'll give you another one. And we're going to figure this out together." So I was like, okay, 5 pages. I think I can handle 5 pages. I can set my comic books aside and I can get through 5 pages. Plus, I had it in my head that I would make this impossible for my librarian, that I would do this hundreds of times. And so she would give me a book, I'd take it home, I'd read my 4 or 5 pages, I'd bring the book back. And I'm pretty sure I did that at least 10 times. And then she handed me Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I remember this. I remember reading those first 5 pages and then setting it down and then being like, you know what, it's fine. I'll just do one more page. And I'll just do one more page. And before I knew it, I had read the whole first chapter, and then I was into the second chapter. And then I didn't even go by the library the next day. I kept the book. And I actually ended up reading that entire book. And I was so excited to go back and tell this librarian, I actually read this book. And she was like, I knew you would. And from that day forward, I didn't have any trouble finishing books after that. I really fell in love with books. And so librarians have played from the beginning a really important role for me. And really, they're the gateway for me to be able to bring books to kids. So they have remained important for my entire life. I've been to over 3,000 schools in the last 25 years. That's about 1 million kids in librarians and gymnasiums. So a lot of strange things have happened along the way. But during this Bonkers tour, I did 151 schools in 2024. And the two things that I remember the most are, one, when I showed up, there was a bird in the gym. You can imagine 300 kids sitting on the floor, and this bird was the worst audience member you could ever imagine. The bird kept flying all over the place. So the kids are like, I'm trying to keep their attention, and the bird is doing a way better job of keeping their attention than I am, and that was pretty funny. We all had a pretty good laugh. In fact, I think at some point I weaved the bird into the presentation because it was turning into a bird presentation. And then right towards the end, I think it was school number 135. It was really late in the tour for 2024. And I encountered a school, and I had never had this happen before, but they had an emotional support dog at this school. I wanted to take the dog and put it in my car and take it home. This dog was the sweetest creature I have ever encountered in my life, and it sort of pulled me through the end of that tour. So those are a couple fun ones from this most recent Bonkers tour. My Bonkers series is now live on overdrive.com. Libraries and schools, this is a funny, fast-paced read perfect for those reluctant readers. You can add Bonkers to your digital collections as an ebook or an audiobook, and it'll be accessible to readers and students everywhere. Happy reading!
Hi, everyone. I'm R.L. Stein. I have some new books that I published with Blackstone Publishing. One is called Slime Doesn't Pay, and the other one is called Shark Night. Slime Doesn't Pay may be the slimiest book I ever wrote. It's about a girl who has a monster for a little brother. He's just terrible to her. He acts like a monster. And one day she decides she's going to teach him a lesson, and she pours a huge bucket of slime over him. And the problem is the slime actually turns him into a monster. That's what that slimy book is about. The other book is called Shark Night, and it's about a boy whose mother is making a documentary for the Danger Channel for Shark Night, and he ends up at the bottom of a big glass tank, and they're going to lower a shark down at him, and he's going to interact with the shark for this exciting TV show. And they're just going to send a toothless old shark that's not interested in people down because they don't want the boy to be in danger. But somebody makes a big mistake and they send a really tough shark down, and now he's in major trouble. I love my middle grade readers. They're the best audience there is. I get the kids 7 to 12. It's the last time in their lives they'll ever be enthusiastic. That age group, they want to know you, they want to read your books, they want to buy things, they want to meet you, they want to hang out with you. They're just great. I was a kid. I grew up in a little suburb of Columbus, Ohio. And when I was a kid, I read only comic books. People always say, what was your favorite children's book? But I didn't have it. I didn't read books. I only read comics. I loved comic books. And one day, my mom dropped me off at the little public library on Main Street, and the librarian was waiting for me. And she said, Bobby, I know you like comic books. I'm going to take you to something else I think you will like. And she took me to a shelf of Ray Bradbury stories. And those stories just changed my life. They were so imaginative, so beautifully written, so clever, and they all had funny twist endings. So Ray Bradbury and that librarian turned me into a reader. I've been grateful to librarians ever since. Attention libraries and schools, my books, Slime Doesn't Pay and Shark Night, are now live on overdrive.com.
Hi, libraries and schools. This is Sherilyn Kenyon.
Matic Hishinuma.
And Hinako Hishinuma.
Matic has had a lifelong love, because I did too, of the myths and the different kind of lore with Japan, and the beauty of the culture. And of course, Hinako is on board because she's our, it's her culture. She had ideas, explain things that we didn't necessarily understand always. But the idea behind Shadow Wars is we have a boy who's been hidden in the human realm, and his father is the Shadow Lord who wants to take over the world. He's the king of the demons. And, it's set in a magic school where they're learning how to become samurai and how to fight all these shadow demons that are lurking out there, ready to take over the human realm.
I have young boys. I'm very passionate about writing for young people, especially young boys, having been one at one time myself. I know just how hard it is to find books that really appeal to my specific weird niche. And basically, me and my mom, since she's a veteran writer and I'm trying to break into it, we started discussing ideas and stuff. And she's like, whoa, Japan's got all these cool myths I never really thought about that are really close to my wheelhouse with the Greeks. This book really is the culmination of combined brain energies.
Mm-hmm. Growing up, we didn't have any money. So I really wasn't able to own books as a kid. I was that little, during summer break when I knew the librarians would be in session and no school kids were there, I would actually go up there and knock on the window going, please let me in. And I was very fortunate that I had school librarians who would let me come in. And so I'd spend a lot of my summers reading and borrowing books at a time when I wasn't supposed to. And, that even all the way up to college, the interlibrary loan system was probably the greatest thing in the world for me. So, libraries are just, thank God they exist. Thank God for librarians, because I shudder to think what my childhood and life would be like if they not been so wonderful and so giving.
And Asian culture is more like, parents are study, 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 right? So for Japanese student, library is basically place to study. It's very quiet. Nobody, say anything. Just, everybody bring it, textbook and studying. Watching TV, it's too bad. Japan has a lot of anime manga culture, but library doesn't have any manga or anime stuff in Japan in Japanese library. So if I go library, my mom said, "Oh, good luck, bye." They will be happy, and then I can open book and read. So it's just like
The
a
secret alcove.
secret, like that. So I do remember when I was middle school, or if I have a day off, I always go there and then staying there forever until my mom called me, "Where are you?" So for me, it's like a quiet, nice place to study or to reading a book morning to night.
One of them was reading one of my books, Chronicles of Nick, in class, and the teacher didn't realize I wrote YA or younger material. And she's like, "Does your mother know you read that?" And he looked up and said, My mom wrote the book. The main character is named for me." So she's like, "Wait a minute, that's your mother? Oh my God, can you get a book autograph for me?" But it is kind of funny now to be able to share this, because, I remember when Maddie was that size and he was at book signings with me, sitting in my lap. So it's really neat that, he got to grow up doing book signings and book tours with me, and now he's going to be with me actually doing them. And we want to invite you to check out our latest book, The Shadow Wars. It's now available for librarians and schools live on overdrive.com. Please add it to your digital collection today and give your patrons and your students access to what we think is really a cool, exciting read.
"Hello?" the man says in his gruff voice. He takes a slow step forward, bowing the boards beneath Chloe. He must be enormous. "Who's in here?" he says, taking another step. Heart hammering more than ever, she leans forward and pulls her legs up to her chest, making herself as small as possible. When she realizes she isn't breathing, she quietly draws back a slow breath. The boards continue to groan and creak and bend beneath her. Chloe peers into the darkness, trying to pinpoint the man among the shadows. Every muscle in her body tightens as she realizes something. He might see her in a flash of lightning. "I'm not gonna hurt you."
Wayfinders, it's kind of like it's a mixed genre piece. It's a contemporary fantasy. It's part adventure. There's a very emotional undercurrent to the story involving these two main characters. So in the story, there's this girl named Chloe, and she lives in the country, and she's got this. She lives in this old farmhouse, and all around her property is this big sprawling forest. So just prior to the story starting, this forest burns down. And one night, Chloe goes out to her barn, and she finds these 5 fairy tale creatures in her barn. And she learns that these creatures, they came out of the forest, to avoid the fires, and now they need to get back. So the only way back is through an entrance that's like 100 miles away. So to get there, Chloe has to enlist her dad's help to drive this old Winnebago and get them all safely across to this new entrance. So the problem with this is that Dad has got really bad anxiety, and his biggest fear of all is driving, and especially driving the Winnebago, this big RV. I usually compare it to a movie. I would say any of the movies by Spielberg coming out of the 80s, like E.T. or Indiana Jones. E.T., it has like this very emotional undercurrent. It's about the family relationship, the family dynamic. And Wayfinders is kind of like that too. It's a contemporary fantasy, but it has some really strong emotional moments. One of the ideas that I had for this book is that I would draw them in with the fantasy and the fun, and then teach a more emotional, an important emotional story. So Chloe comes into the story and she's got this deep hurt. She's grieving for the loss of her. She lost her horse, and she used to jump horses, and she sort of lost her life. She lost her identity. So when she had this accident with this horse, she stopped jumping, and then she stopped going to these horse shows with her parents, and she stopped going to see her friends because it was too painful. So when this story starts, she has this deep emotional wound, and she's lost herself, and she has to find herself across the course of the story. Like I said, Dad hates to drive more than anything. So Dad, his thing is more, he has to learn to trust himself and to be brave. So I think both are kind of relatable to kids. When I was a kid, I had a really big imagination. Like I was the one kid in my friend group that would, just be off in my head, all day long. So imagination came really naturally to me. It was a very magical time in my life. So when I was like 9 to 12 years old, my imagination was really flourishing. So when I go to write, I mean, it's a novel, it's fantasy, my imagination kicks in, and very naturally I go back to this time when I was really young. I had a previous editor who told me that I bet you kind of peaked when you were about 10 years old. I said, yeah, that's totally true. I really knew who I was when I was 10 years old. So every March is reading month, and that's when I hit all the schools. And I do about 40 or 50 a year. So it's just great. Again, it's that sort of return to childhood, going back in the schools. The old neighborhood schools have a certain smell, a certain atmosphere. The kids are, a different sort of species than what we see in the adult world. It's just very magical. So, some of my books are really well received by the schools. And so I'll go into some schools, and the school's all decorated with the characters and the setting and the different things. And when I speak in front of I do assemblies, and when I speak in front of the kids, it's, they very much see the 10-year-old boy inside of me. It's not the old guy up there. It's the kid who imagined these stories and who wrote these stories. So it's great. I mean, teachers, librarians, always positive feedback. I'm starting to get feedback from my first book series, The Secret Zoo, which was published like 15 years ago. Teachers are saying, yeah, I love this book when I was growing up. They read it to me in my school, and now I'm reading it to my kids. I'm a teacher now, and I'm reading it to my kids. So that's really cool. So, I mean, my relationship with the schools and with the librarians is probably the most important relationship I have in this whole book thing. To talk a little bit about Wayfinders some more. So this was like a very special book to me. So I spent like 4 years developing it. And I worked with like different freelance editors to get their perspective and, feedback from not just the text, but the concept, the ideas, the emotion. It's actually really near and dear to my heart. And the Chloe and the Dad, both of those characters are a deep reflection of me and some of my personality, my core issues. So it was a big, important, special book to me. I'm Brian Chick, the author of Wayfinders, and I'm excited that my latest book, Wayfinders, is now available on overdrive.com. So libraries and schools can now add it to their collections, and hopefully your readers and students will enjoy it.